I'd like to open us with a prayer for this congregation. It's from the Book of Common Prayer. It's on page 817, and it is prayer number 11. So let us pray. Almighty and ever-living God, ruler of all things in heaven and earth, hear our prayers for this parish family. Strengthen the faithful, arouse the careless, and restore the penitent. Grant us all things necessary for our common life, and bring us all to be of one heart and mind within your holy church. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Amen. I invite you to include this prayer in your daily prayers as we, the Church of our Saviour family, approach this time of transition and calling our new rector. Today we begin the process, or the conversation about the process that we as a parish are about to begin. But first, be mindful that Father Gary and Peg are fully present and in our midst. Gary is our rector. The vestry, along with Father Gary and Peg, are making plans as we move forward together into the next 150 years of this parish. I will now say this in front of Father Gary. We need a committee. A committee needs to be formed to celebrate Gary and Peg's life with us. And I want this to be a glorious, joyful celebration. So if you are interested in being a part of this committee, please let me know. So, what happens now? Let me take one step back to let you know how your vestry has been preparing for this inevitable day. I have been taking the ostrich with its head in the sand approach and feeling that this was never going to come, and I didn't want to admit that Gary was really going to retire, but it is happening. So back in March of 2017, the vestry had a full weekend retreat with Bob Honeychurch. Bob's main job is to serve as an interim priest. He led the vestry through a weekend-long process of preparing for a transition for when Gary would ultimately announce his retirement plans. Bob helped the vestry to prepare for the steps that would be necessary to take, and this process has been on the minds of the vestry for several months. I want the congregation to know what will be happening every step of the way as we journey together to call a new rector, hence today's forum. Patrick and I, as your junior warden, will be reviewing some of the information provided to us by the diocese, and there will be an opportunity for questions. If we don't get through everything today, we will call another forum. As part of keeping you, the congregation, informed of where we are on this journey, I kind of like Gary's image of the Jews wandering in the wilderness, but God was always with them on this journey. I will be writing at least a monthly article for the Messenger, letting everyone know what steps are being taken by the vestry and the other committees formed. There will be a link on the website to describe our process as well, and I'm contemplating some type of poster or other visual that can be set up on Sunday morning so that you can view our journey as you step into the church as we are calling our new rector. So, what has been done thus far? Number 1, we had our vestry retreat. Number 2, when Gary informed me, the senior warden, of his retirement date, I made an appointment with Canon Joanna Sartorius. She is the head of the Office for Transition Ministry. I believe back in the day it used to be called the Deployment Office, but now we're looking at Transition Ministry. Meeting with her starts the process with the diocese. The office is now aware that Gary is retiring and when. They are also now aware that we will be in need of an interim or a priest in charge. Between myself as senior warden, Joanna, and the bishop, we will secure an individual to fill that spot. This individual will assist and guide us in our self-study and our parish profile. Thirdly, Joanna met with the vestry last Tuesday night to outline the steps that need to be taken. Fourthly, today we have this forum to share with you the work that is ahead of us as a parish. Patrick will be sharing that with you in just a moment, but before Patrick begins, I want you to know that the vestry is proceeding prayerfully. We are proceeding cautiously, and we are proceeding joyfully. A search committee will not be formed until the work of the parish profile has been completed and given to the vestry for approval and approved by the diocese. So now Patrick will go over this, what the parish profile is, and I'm going to sit down.
going to use this one, but I'll just raise this a little bit. Sorry.
They told me to sit down. I said, that's not going to work. You won't see me behind the podium.
So good morning, everyone. So the slides that we're going to walk through now are the ones that Joanna Sartorius brought to the vestry. So these are, sort of official Diocese of Los Angeles slides on how to go about the process of completing a parish profile. So that seems pretty self-evident, right? I mean, the idea is we spend the time and do the work to come up with statements that reflect who we think we are and where we think we're going. And that it's important to point out at this point that we've relatively recently completed the strategic plan, right? A lot of you have been involved in the various committees and done a lot of the work on the strategic plan, and it feels like it hasn't been that long ago. So why not just use that? And the reality is it has kind of been a while, and a lot has happened in this parish over the last 5 years. So we're starting afresh, but we're using all of that work as a foundation for moving forward with the parish profile. So I'm not going to go through and read. You guys can all read that for yourselves. But the importance of the profile is really that it helps us articulate who we are. It forces us to think about where we've been, where we are now, and where we're going. And that's a very important process. There are extra chairs over here if we're out of chairs. I'd love to see that we have this many people coming in. There's a stack of chairs over here if we need more chairs. And there are a couple of empty seats at tables in here, so please fill in. So one of the things that we have to do is articulate our history. And we have a pretty interesting history over the last 15 years. Certainly Sharon and I have not been a part of it for that long. So we will articulate our history. We won't relitigate our history. So we'll name it, we'll recognize it, but we won't dive into the weeds and try to pick sides because that doesn't really do anyone any good. We're looking forward and backward only to the extent that it helps us to decide what's important to us moving forward. Okay. Nope. I don't know how to do that. All right. So the elements, as you can see, we're going to focus again on our mission statement and goals. We already have those, but we're going to spend some time and decide if we like the mission and statement and goals as we have them now, or do they need to be updated. The history I just talked about. The description of programs and organizations, a lot of that work has kind of already been done right by the strategic plan process, but it certainly helps to re-articulate all of those things, all of the amazing work that is being done in and around and from this campus. We'll go through the financials. You'll see later. We won't spend a lot of time on that, but we have to articulate the current financial condition of the parish for purposes of the profile. Not least because as we move into the next phase, whatever that will be, to call the next rector, that's important information for that person to know. The last thing on there is quality sought in a new priest. And I think it's our nature to kind of rush to that first, right? To say, well, I want this person. I want this kind of person. These are the things that I think we should have in a priest. And we have to resist that temptation. That's in our nature. We have to really consciously resist that temptation. I put that last. I actually kind of reordered what Joanna had, because the goal is for the qualities of the new priest to emerge, to present itself or themselves from the work that we do in the profile. So I can't stress this enough. Let's not get caught up in our own preconceptions about what the next rector should be based on what I think, but let's see what emerges from this profile process. And let that drive our collective thought about what this new person looks like. I think that's it. Pretty self-explanatory. I think everyone knows, sort of the elements of creating a mission statement and goals. I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on that. So, history of the congregation should be brief. We've got 150 years of history. So that's a little challenging, but I think we can probably encapsulate it fairly well. And as I said, not all that history has been all that fun. So we need to name that and acknowledge it, but not sink into the muck about it. Pretty self-explanatory, right? And again, foundational work already done to a great degree. All that needs to be updated, but through the work that we've done on the strategic plan process. So a lot of this will be relatively easy to update, but important to rethink it, re-articulate it for this purpose. Brief and accurate being the important word there. Go ahead. One more thing. So, as Julie said, we're not going to be forming a search committee yet, because the first work is the parish profile. And so these are some of the ways that the profile committee to be formed will go about gathering this information. So it may seem like, again, we just did this strategic plan work, we just did a parish survey. It may seem a little bit redundant, but it really isn't, because it's all fresh. It all needs to be up to the minute, fresh thoughts about who we are and where we're going. And we have a lot of new members, honestly, in the last 5 years. So the vestry will be reaching out to or looking for volunteers for the profile committee. And this is a very important job. And it will require some time, commitment on the part of those on the committee. And the other thing that it will require is patience from all of us in the congregation, because we can't rush this process. This is going to take some time. And I know that people, again, our human nature is, well, we can't be rudderless. We can't not have a rector for 2 years. And the answer is, actually, we can. And we probably will. And that's okay. So be ready for a long engagement just in this process alone. Forgetting the search for a second, just in creating a profile. It's going to require input literally from every single person. I mean, that's the goal anyway. And patience, because nothing else happens. We do not make a call to a new rector until this has been completed to the satisfaction of the profile committee, presented to and accepted by the vestry. And again, this isn't just Pat and Julie making up these rules. This is the prescribed method of conducting the search by the Diocese of Los Angeles and probably the Episcopal Church. So we're not making this up, and we're not trying to impose, some sort of desire of our own. This is the prescribed method by the diocese, and the last couple of searches kind of haven't really gone that way. So it'd be nice if we could do one, sort of according to the book. Oh, back one. So again, the last item on there, what emerges from the profile that tells us about the skills and experiences we hope the next rector to have. And again, emphasizing one more time, the profile will ideally dictate or give us ideas about what the next rector should look like. And I don't mean that visually. And then this last part is just sort of information. Again, in the event that we do a nationwide or global even search, we want to give a person some idea about the community in which we're situated, demographics, all the things that come along with someone relocating into a new region. It remains to be seen if we will conduct a global, nationwide or global search. But in the event we do, and even honestly, if someone's coming from some other part of Southern California, it's still helpful to know this information. So we'll engage a variety of sources for gathering this information, and again, ideally engage a broad swath of the congregation in helping to compile it. That's it. So this is the last slide, and this is really more directed toward the committee that's producing the profile. We want it to be well done and attractive. We want it to be free of errors, so that hence the edit carefully, because this is really going to be the document that goes out to the world to say, this is who we are. This is the Church of our Savior. This is everything you need to know about who we are and what we do. And so the work of the profile committee is absolutely essential to this process. So that's really it. That's it for Joanna's slides. I'll entertain, Julie and I will entertain any questions that you have.
One or two more things.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. Because I think that the work of the profile is so important, and we have done a lot of work already, I have asked Paul Killian, as the head of our strategic plan, to head up the Parish Profile Committee. I think that Paul's writing ability, his ability to be concise, the work that we've done already together, and Paul has agreed to be the chairman for that profile committee, and I thank Paul for that. I don't know if Paul's here today, but I thank him greatly for that. I'm excited about this time. I mean, this is a time for us to engage all the members of our parish to be a part of this process. This is how we launch ourselves into the next 150 years, and this is how we ignite our future. So kind of living that, honoring our past and igniting our future. And I want all of us to be a part of this, and I want you to feel excited about this and as we move forward. So now questions.
Questions?
I will work on doing that. Okay. Yes.
Question number one, obviously we are not the first church in the country to do this. Do you have models, successful models that you can follow or talk to?
Yes.
Question two is, he's looking for a leader for any large corporation. They go to a headhunting type place, a search.
Mm-hmm.
Does the church do that as well?
As far as a model, this is the model. Okay. The first question was, is there a model for following this process? And I will say yes, there is a model for following this process. Many churches in our diocese are now following this process. Joanna will be guiding us through this process every step of the way, and she had told us on Tuesday night that 99.9% of the parishes who have followed this process have been successful with their search. So I am very confident in this process. Number 2, do large corporations, looking for a search is our headhunter type person. What we were told on Tuesday night is as soon as Gary told the diocese that he was that this position was going to be open, Joanna put it on the diocese website. So it is already out in the local diocese. As we start doing the process and have more information, it will likely go out to the national church. It might even go out to the Episcopal Church at large. So within the diocese itself, there is a headhunting process per se. That is why having a very, very exact parish profile is so important. This is what people will be using to read. Joanna, we were told that once we get the parish profile together, we need to condense it down to one page. And when people start showing interest in being a part of this process, she will send them this one-page parish profile. So I hope I answered that question. Okay. Laurel?
I think just a point of clarification. Just a point of, it's not working.
Okay, yeah, it is.
Just a point of clarification as far as the headhunter. We are the headhunter. We're we are the ones who are going to find this. It's not where we put this out to the diocese and they choose a few people and then we pick. It really is us and our process, and we narrow it down to the candidates, and then the vestry will be the one who make the ultimate decision. And I think you need to be kind of clear about that. No one's talked about the finances, but I do think it sounds very, exciting. It's like, oh, we're going to put it out to the world. Mm-hmm. You do need to remember that we have to pay all the moving expenses. We have to bring that. We will be paying their expenses to move here, or we will negotiate it. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
I saw Gary's hand up, and then Tom.
On the issue of headhunting, there it goes. On the issue of headhunting, two things. The Episcopal Church of the United States has a database. It's a deployment database, and from that, people who are looking for ministries place their stuff in, their credentials, and churches that are looking are put in there if you want to be, and that's a decision for the vestry. That's one. But the other very important headhunting that Joanna explained to us is that she has been doing this for 15 years or so, I forget what she said, number of years. She knows most of the deployment officers, now called transition officers, in all of the dioceses, or at least most of them. And what she does frequently enough is ask them, is there someone not looking for a job who would actually be the best for this job in your diocese? Is that possible in your area, in your knowledge? So that's another source, and it's actually pretty good.
Are these slides going to be on the website, or will there be a portion of our website where you could do updates and continue to inform us on what's going on?
Yes. There, one of my visions is that there will be either, we call it Rector Search, or there will be a part on the website where every step of the process will be available to every congregant on the website. So we can add these slides to it as well. That should be an easy fix, as I'm saying that confidently that Gabe can do this. Okay, Carrie's nodding yes. And the letters that I put, and any work that the committees are doing, it will be available on that link on the website, Tom. Will?
Can you explain to the parish the difference between a priest in charge and an interim priest in importance?
Yeah.
Or no.
Okay. I will. Okay. As Gary retires, we need to have someone in charge. There are several options available to us. We can have just an interim who comes in and preaches on Sunday and says, thank you very much, you guys, Senior Warden Vestry, you take care of this yourself. I personally believe that we need a little bit more than that at this time. There is another position called a priest in charge, and that is a person whose job is only to be an interim, to help guide the parish through the process of developing their parish profile and moving into transition. A priest in charge is not eligible to be called as a rector. Okay? That may be a route that we go as we are on this journey. If we choose, and after the parish profile, and we weren't really going to get into this, and this comes along down the road, there is a position called a priest in charge under special circumstances. That is a completely separate person. That person then can be called after a set amount of time by the vestry. A priest in charge cannot be called. A priest in charge under special circumstances can be called as a rector. Is that clear as mud? Dennis.
As a point of clarification, I believe that the Reverend Gary Bradley was a
Yes.
priest in charge under special circumstances when he came here.
Correct.
And he succeeded to rector.
Mm-hmm. So we do not know where we are going yet. The parish profile will help us determine if we want to do a full search or if we want to go the route of having a priest in charge under special circumstances after we have a standard priest in charge. Okay? Okay.
Yeah, you probably can answer the question. The priest in charge really is your rector.
Yes.
He operates as your rector. You make that commitment. That's
Mm-hmm.
the vestry's decision. If the interim does not have that authority and power, the senior warden retains all of that with an interim, plain interim, but a PIC, priest in charge, without those other three letters. Realize that person will run the annual meeting. That person will do everything, probably preach most Sundays. They take over quickly, immediately, and that's their job. They do it as professionals. We have at least 4 in this diocese, and there's others that can be brought in, but we have at least 4 to choose from. We don't choose, the diocese does, but the choice is made, the person is sent, and you have the stability of a rector called PIC.
Mm-hmm.
He was an interim only. He was not a PIC.
Could you repeat the question?
The question was the previous person that you remember, some of you, Charles Saputi, what was his role? How was he titled? He was an interim only. That was his desire. After having been a rector for so many years in Huntington Beach, big parish, he said, "That's enough. I'm just going to do the interim thing." And he came in and laughed his way to our health, I think. There's a big difference between the priest in charge and under special circumstances. The priest in charge.
Yeah. Here. I'm okay right now.
The priest in charge is very, very clearly not allowed. You could love her. You could love him. You could say, "Oh, can we just have her? She's perfect." No, you can't. Priest in charge signs on, "I will not work behind the scenes to try to get them to hire me." So that's off the table. They know it. We know it. It's very important. And that's very helpful and healthy, because just bumping somebody quickly in and then seeing what happens is not good process. So that's what priest in charge. When the bishop adds under special circumstances, that's a very different thing, and you don't actually choose the person yourself. You've decided that you have come to this profile and you trust Bishop John Taylor to assign a person here. That person comes, and for 12 months they are fully in charge. They hire and fire, they lead annual meetings, they do everything, but what they don't have is tenure. So when you decide and go through a process and decide not to go that way, but to go through a search process, that takes another 8 to 12 months. You come to the end, you hire the rector. That very moment when the vestry, by consensus, by the way, not by vote, it's not going to be 10 to 5. It's going to be unanimous, or at least equivalent, by consensus. That's the new recommendation. You don't vote and have losers and winners. You work. It might take 3 days to come to consensus, where a vote could be done like that. Okay, don't do that. You can't do that. You shouldn't anyway. So, what you end up doing, after the profile, you say we're going to decide on a process. Process 1 is enter a search, go for about a year with the same PIC helping you all that time, and we're going to end up by hiring a rector. Or we're going to choose the other process and ask the bishop to assign us a PIC USC. Then we have 12 months to look at her, look at him, deal with him. He deals with us, she deals with us, whatever. And after 6 months, we evaluate. Say, well, let's keep going, or maybe we really need to already think about going to other process and starting a search. It's entirely possible, therefore, as I say, that there is no search process. There is no search team if you go with that other process. But realize if you do the choice of going to a PIC USC, you are going for the process, not for the person. You don't get to decide which person you get to put in that circumstance. Big advantage of going for the full search process is there are many more people willing to come who know the day you elect them, they have total authority and power, and you can't fire them. You can't do it. You have to go through the kinds of things that happen here, cajole, encourage, pay off, and all that. So people, not so good sometimes. So that reality means there's a lot more people willing to do that. There's not as many willing to say, well, maybe they'll keep me, maybe they won't. So I'll move my family from, Boise or from New York, and maybe they'll keep me for 12 months and maybe they won't. There's not as many who want to do that. But there are a lot who do, and a lot who are typically younger, and that's something about your desire for, what you're looking for. That category will have more people in it as in the younger level. A person who's been a priest for a long, long time and established and has kids in college, may have more difficulty saying I would be a priest in charge under special circumstances, and they might not take me after 12 months. So you have two choices. Do we want to have a bigger pool and actually elect, and when we do, we got him, we got her, and tenure is immediate. Realize that's kind of unique. Other churches don't do that. Why does the Episcopal Church do that? Because if you have tenure, you can be a prophet. You can say, this parish needs to do something very different than it's doing. And people get angry and upset. But if the person is obeying the rules, doing what's needed, teaching about the Bible, doing all that stuff, then you need to work with that. And that's why the Episcopal Church, unlike others, put in this life tenure. Life tenure. So young person, till 72 years of age, you cannot fire them. Unless there's malfeasance, unless there's something, that sort of a thing. So there's argument here. You want to do PIC, USC, less of a gamble, but less of a pool? Or do you want to take the chance? And really, you would work hard, I'm sure, if you decide you want to do the search. You're not going to hire somebody who's going to blow up on you. However, let me tell you, St. Matthew's and Pacific Palisades did precisely that. Moved a person from Kentucky. 3 months in, they said, this is not working. We want to say goodbye to this rector. The bishop said, you can't. You have to work with that rector and see what will work. And they ended up paying 2 years' salary and saying goodbye. But they had to do that. How that worked in that process. Does that make sense? Am I scaring you? I hope I'm not.
Okay.
This will be a beautiful process. I'm telling you, when a healthy parish enters into it, Joanna said parishes grow. They grow when they have a healthy process, and they do it well, and they take their time, and they pray about it, and they allow the pillar of cloud and the pillar of fire to guide them through. So,
But that decision doesn't even start until after the profile.
We will not make any decision. Yeah. So, Linda, I think I saw your hand up first. And then I saw Pam's too, unless there's a question. But I'll go Linda, Sue, Pam. How's that? Okay.
I was talking with a member of the search committee for All Saints the other day, and they seemed really pleased with the process they went through.
Yeah, their process was kind of completely different. Oh, the question was, Linda talked to someone who was on the search committee at All Saints, Pasadena. All Saints did they're a church of their own. And they did a completely different process than what we did. And I think it worked. It worked for them. We're not All Saints.
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if they follow the same process.
No, they did not. All Saints did not follow this process per se. They kind of had an overlap. They did not, between the current rector leaving and them. So their process was a little bit different than ours. So, okay. Sue, Sue.
If we go in the direction of the PIC,
Yes.
do we have absolutely nothing to say about who that person will be among the choices that are?
I do not believe that we have any say. The question was, if we go priest in charge under special circumstances. Priest in, I thought you said priest in charge. Of those 4 candidates, I have been able to give a little bit of input into that, and Joanna is considering that. And if the person, so there is some conversation. We just need to see if that person is available, and if the person that I would like, that I think would be a good match for us, is available. Joanna is aware of that, and if Bishop Taylor approves it too, I would like to see that work, and I think it would be a wonderful match for us.
So the answer is no.
We have a tiny bit of say. It's a tiny bit of say. We could say yes or no to us. There might be one person who is really not a good match at all. And Joanna, knowing who we are and where we need to go, she's really trying to find a good match for us. Everyone in the diocese wants this process to work for us. No one is against us. We are all working together. This process is going to be an exciting, wonderful process, and we want it to move forward every step of the way. Okay. Pam.
No, Father Gary answered.
Okay. Jeffrey.
Really possible that more than one teaching task in case they are not satisfied with the person.
I do not believe that is. Oh, the question was, can we have more than one priest in charge? And if we're not happy with the first one. If we get a priest in charge and we're not happy, I think we have both, I think under the priest in charge under special circumstances, we have that 6-month review. If something is not moving forward, I believe that we have a chance to change that process. So we have to live with it for a minimum of 6 months, I believe, and then make a decision. Or then we have, after the 6 months, we have some opportunity to see if we can make some adjustments to see if we can get on the right path. So there is a review at 6 months. But I believe that they only send one person, Jeffrey. Let's see if I can write that question down. So I'm going to try to answer these on the website and in my letter. Okay. Emmanuel, yes?
Are there any in-house priests eligible for promotion?
No.
At this time,
The
no.
question was, are there any priests on staff now that are eligible to be the rector? And the answer is no.
I'm sorry, that needs to be said in the microphone.
Okay.
Oh, you were going to.
Manuel's question was, are there any priests currently available in-house to be promoted to rector? And at this time, the answer to that question is no. Any other questions?
That's a diocesan rule. That's not just because I don't think so.
Yeah.
You cannot promote from inside. That's always been a rule of the church. It was a surprise to me because technically I was inside as an employee of the church. So only the bishop can notify.
Sandy?
Just a statement, speaking as a parishioner, not as an 80-year-old person, I do not believe time is our friend in this case.
Okay. Sandy says at this time that he does not believe that time is our friend in this case. I would respectfully disagree. I believe that we need to enter this process prayerfully. I believe that we need to not be rushed in developing our parish profile. One of the things that Patrick did not mention about the parish profile is there are narrative questions, not check the box and we do the database, but there are narratives that we need to thoughtfully and prayerfully answer. And candidates who are interested in this position will also be prayerfully and thoughtfully answering in a narrative form. And that takes time too. And through that narrative process, not a database, check the box, that is where we will also see where our ideals, our hopes, our dreams mesh in that. So that in a way, I believe that we need to take the time to really identify who we are. We need to identify where we need to go, and we need to sell ourselves. We need to see who we are, not a priest to match us, but we need to, a priest to match us, not us to match to a priest. And that's my belief. So,
Julie, what's the timeline, and how do we give our input as parishioners?
The timeline for this is a minimum, I think, of 2 years is what we were recommended, but we're not really going to do a timeline per se.
I mean the profile.
The profile, I believe that we will start doing the profile process after Gary leaves.
Oh.
And one of the recommendations to us was to have a full parish day where we record it like we are here and we tell our story, and that will be the first part. And that it might be a forum like this, or it might be an after church, but everyone gets to have part in that, telling our story of who we are, where we've been, and that is recorded and that is brought down to a concise. Something else that was recommended to us is if we do a survey, we do not do it we bring the questions, we describe the question, we give the questionnaires to people sitting in a group like this. We kind of talk about what we're meaning, and then people can fill it out as they're hearing what the question means. So we do it in community here. And the people that we cannot meet in community, we might do it one-on-one. But there will be many, many opportunities for input onto this process. Sure. Reasons to wait. Two reasons, maybe. To have our priest in charge, number one, to guide us through this process, who is trained to do this. Number two, it is now the end of September. We look at the liturgical year, and this was something Joanna recommended to us too. Look at what our liturgical year starts to look like heading into Advent and Christmas. Do you think that we can realistically cram something else into that? I mean, just realistically, I want to get the most bang for our buck, and I want to have the most people present, and I know how crazy seasons get. And I want, Gary is here. Gary's our rector right now. And I don't want any of this to undermine what is going on with Gary at this time. Yep. Okay.
I'll just add one thing about that, and that is it's not going to be a small celebration that we plan for Peg and Gary's departure, so it's going to take some time to plan that before we start working on...
Okay. I saw another hand up. Yes, Nancy?
Just for clarification, if we have a priest in charge and we don't like him or her after 6 months, we say goodbye, may we have another one?
Yes. No, even a PIC. I think if the PIC is not working for us too, we can go back to the diocese and say this is not what we need. So the question was, so I believe that there is room for growth and for change in that as well. Yes. Okay, did that answer that question? Okay. Are there any other questions right now? We will have another forum. We will have many opportunities for conversation. Call me, call Patrick, call anyone on the vestry, email the vestry if you feel that we did not answer your questions. I will try to keep you all informed of this process every step of the way, and I will try to, as concisely as I can, get these questions answered in my newsletter or article. So there's plenty of food. Please eat up before you go into church. I thank you all. Please prayerfully keep us in your prayers as we start this process. It will be an exciting process. It's now time to ignite our future. So thank you, everyone.